Right, so we might have found a consensus of how many wins the San Antonio Spurs could potentially get this upcoming season.
I want some rest. Are we having fun yet?
All right, so as things are approaching, as this season is approaching, it's that time of the year where we start to speculate on how good the San Antonio Spurs could potentially be. Now, I am actually going to take a little bit of a shot this season, okay? I do have a new prediction for how many wins the Spurs will have this season. Now, last season, before it even started, I was pretty adamant that I didn't think that we would be that good at all. Now, I don't think I said 22 wins. I don't think I went with 22, but it was pretty low. I thought that we would make it maybe to 30, probably under that though, only because even though Wemby is very impressive, we had no team around him whatsoever. We had nothing. And not to say that our players are trash or anything, but Devin Vassell, he still had to show me quite a bit. We had to see whether or not Keldon would fit. Jeremy Sohan, obviously only going to his second year, so that was a question mark of how much he will improve as far as his three-point shooting. And we were hearing things in the offseason about what he's been working on, and a big chunk of that was playmaking, right? So it was everything was up in the air, and it was going to be an experimental year, and it was going to be a year of at least evaluations and seeing what direction we need to go in. So I was not expecting us to be that good, but this season I feel a little bit different. So this is from ESPN, and big shout out to Spurs reporter for posting this. But as we can see here, so ESPN experts panel is predicting 13 win improvement for Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs, the second biggest jump in the league. Unfortunately, they don't think it will be enough to vault the San Antonio Spurs in the playoffs. Do you agree with these predictions? Well, Spurs reporter, I actually disagree with it slightly, okay, only slightly. So first and foremost, I still don't think the Spurs make the playoffs, okay? I've been adamant about that. I've been constantly saying that. I don't think the Spurs make the playoffs. Now, what's interesting about this list or these predictions from ESPN here is they have the Golden State Warriors at 8 with 45 wins. I love me some Steph Curry, but I don't know if they'll be good enough to get to that point, right? I don't know if they'll be able to catapult themselves that high. I at least keeping up with them, it seems as if their team got quite worse, much worse. I could very well see them falling quite a bit out of that. But I will say this. So everyone, and the reason why I said consensus is because everyone goes with 35. I haven't seen too many people go over or under 35. Not Spurs fans, not casuals, not anybody. Most people think 35 is a safe bet with this team. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. All right. I think we might end up being better than 35. The more I think about this roster, I think that they're going to really surprise some people. And I went back and I looked at a lot of our past losses, right? And some of them, it looks as if, oh my goodness, you lost by 10, you lost by 12, you lost by 15. It didn't happen that often, but it was quite a few close games as well. And I realized, I'm like, you know what? Most of these losses came down to the fourth quarter, right? Now we could argue that because the Spurs weren't a great team, that a lot of players, or a lot of, we could just say players, teams as a whole, went against the Spurs and just underestimated them, right? Just kind of didn't give them full effort in the first two quarters, and then the second half ramped it up a little bit, which I will definitely say, that happened quite a bit. But also, I think that a big chunk of those games we played last season, these teams played harder against the Spurs than they might have over the course of several seasons because you have Wembanyama. Everybody wanted to play against him and compete. They were excited to go against the Spurs. I mean, every question that they got after games was pertaining to Wembanyama. So they wanted to actually give their best showing. And even if we take a team like, I don't know, the Memphis Grizzlies, right? When we went against them in Memphis, one of those games in particular where everyone talked about the Ja Morant dunking on Wemby game. That team was playing hard versus the San Antonio Spurs. So I don't think that a big chunk of our losses came down to teams just kind of underestimating us and not really caring that much and, just ramping up. I don't think that was a big chunk of it. I think they actually did want to play us hard. I think that they knew that if they got a highlight on Wemby that will be everywhere. I think everyone wanted to compete against him. And even teams like the OKC Thunder, or players, in particular, Chet Holmgren, he might have, played decently well, but Wembanyama woke him up, right? He woke up that competitive spirit in him, and he started playing harder in their showing. So I think that the Spurs got a pretty good dose of what's coming their way year after year. And not only that, when it comes to the fourth quarters, I think that we had a lot of, I know this, we had a lot of leads and we just lost those leads, right? We just lost them in the fourth quarter because we didn't know how to finish. There were many games in which the young guys would make a mistake, right? Keldon would make a mistake, Sohan would make a mistake, Vassell would make a mistake here and there. And we just didn't finish strong, and we didn't have the defense and the capabilities of finishing strong. But now you have the addition of Chris Paul, who he's going to make sure you play good and you finish, right? You have Harrison Barnes, who's a proven veteran, and then coming off the bench, we have a much better, way better bench than we did last season. And I think some people are really underestimating the fact that you have Julian Champagnie, because that is a big deal to have him coming off the bench, because I thought him as a starter was pretty doggone decent. Like I thought that he did a good job being a 3-and-D. I thought that his basketball IQ was quite high. I thought he made the right reads, made the right cuts, sneaky athleticism, but unfortunately he's just not good enough to be a starting shooting guard, or starting small forward, that is. But coming off the bench, that's pretty good, right? I think that's pretty doggone good. So I think that he'll have a better showing. I think a lot of fans will keep their eyes on him and actually really enjoy his play as well. So I think the Spurs are just a much better squad. So instead of this 35, I'm thinking the Spurs might be in the 40s. I truly do believe that. Now, I'm not going to go 45. I'm not going to go there. But I think the Spurs could possibly be 40 to 41. I think that we can add maybe 6 more wins to this bad boy. Now, keeping in mind, this is if the Spurs don't trade Chris Paul at the trade deadline, right? Which that's a huge if, because I do think Chris Paul leaving that roster, you'll get some more wins, but you might not reach that 41. But if the Spurs go ahead and just ride it out with them and Chris Paul wants to stay and they extend him another year, I don't think that would be the case. But if they were to do that, I think that that's actually a really good showing, man. I think the Spurs could get quite a few dubs in. But there is a possibility that you get to the trade deadline and he's done his job, right? And everyone is playing pretty efficiently and they know exactly how Wemby needs the ball, wants the ball, and we can just kind of play through that system, the groundworks of that new system. So it could go either way. It can go either way. But you guys let me know what you think. Those are my overall thoughts. I think the Spurs could potentially be 40-41. I think that that's going to be my prediction. I'm still thinking about it, but I think I'm going to go with 40. But we'll see. I'll look at the comments. I'll give it to you guys later, man. Until next time, bye.